Hey guys, this is Lee with Untapped Potential. We are doing another Magic Online Magic Origins Pack Per Win Swiss event. That's a lot of words to basically say we're drafting, we're getting 3 booster packs, we're playing 3 rounds, and we get 1 booster pack for every round we win. So the goal here is to go 3-0 so we can play again for free. We're jumping right into it this week, and in our first pack we get an Ember Maw Hellion as our rare. Let me go ahead and display the preview window real quick, and I'll go ahead and bring that into the frame. Here we are, get it out of the way. So Ember Maw Hellion has trample, and any red sources, when it does damage, it does an additional damage. That's really great. Sky Snare Spider, there's a tongue twister for you. This guy's also really good. He's a vigilant reach 6/6 spider creature. That's a big body and really hard to deal with. And he's an uncommon. He's probably not coming back around the table. Other good stuff in this pack, we have Rock's Maulers, a very solid green common. Pricklebore is okay in the red-black aggro deck. I think I'm going to go ahead and grab the Hellion here, because if we wind up in red, a very aggressive color, this guy will let us end games even quicker. Whatever the rare was in this pack, it must have been very good because Whirler Rogue is left in. This card is incredible. It's a 2/2 that when it enters the battlefield, we put 2 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature tokens with flying onto the battlefield. We can also then tap 2 untapped artifacts we control, which means target creature can't be blocked this turn, which means we can even use those tokens the turn they enter the battlefield. Let's see what else is in this pack. We have a Fiery Impulse, which does damage to creatures. Farrakha's Disciple is a very solid creature with its large body and death touch. Those are the big ones. Jesse and Thief is also very good, but it's definitely nowhere near as good as Whirler Rogue, arguably the best uncommon in the set. We'd be foolish to let it get away. We're going to pick it up. Well, our next rare here is Abbot of Carol Keep. It's a 2/1 for 2 with Prowess, and when it enters the battlefield, exile the top card of your library. Until the end of turn, you may play that card. Now, play that card, you still have to, pay its mana cost and all that, but if it's something like a land, and you haven't already played your land for turn, you can use it. Let's see what else is in this pack that might be better. It's a pretty shallow pack. Knight of the Pilgrim's Road is an alright renown card. Unholy Hunger is removal, which is always a good thing. Subterranean Scout is good if you're in the red-white aggro deck. And Watercourser is a very solid filler card in a blue deck. We're going to go ahead and grab the Abbot. Okay, I'm less enthusiastic about this pack overall, as it appears that blue is definitely being... Well, it may be too early to say if blue is for sure being cut, but it's not looking too promising for us. But let's look at what we do have. Black and White Blood Curse Knight is still hanging around, good in the Black-White Enchantments deck. The Crow and Jailer is actually doing better, I think a little better than most people expected. His ability costs more than this has cost in the past, but in order to not completely abuse renown creatures, I think that was just a thing that had to happen. We could try to grab as many Infectious Bloodlusts as possible and try to go on on some sort of power thing there. I'm not sure we want to. Nantuko Husks are excellent if we wind up in red-black aggro, which if blue is being cut, we may, and I distinctly remember regretting not picking those up when I had the chance last time. We're going to get the Husk. Okay, here's Chief of the Foundry, which if we do wind up in the artifact plan, we're going to want. Also good in this pack, Separatist Void Mage, who bounces a creature when he enters the battlefield, Aspiring Aeronaut, who gives us Thopters, and Crow and Sergeant is good if we end up on the beatdown plan. I think we're going to go ahead and pick up the Chief of the Foundry here, as we are going to hope to get into the blue-red artifacts, and if we do, we're going to want this guy. There's also a chance we'll see more of the Thopter guy later, since he's only a common, whereas this is an uncommon. For the first time all day, we are also not the last person in the room to pick. So we got to see what other players are doing before we get to see another card. If we look in the menu over here, we will see that this handsome fellow, Glomus, is us. And several players before us only have 3, 4, 4, so we're waiting on some other people. Okay, we have a passable artifact here, the Guardian Automaton, which when it dies, we gain 3 life. It's got 3/3 for 4. That's okay. Artificer's Epiphany, if we do have enough artifacts, is great. If we don't, it's only okay. Right now, we can't afford to let any good artifacts pass us, so we're going to go ahead and pick this up. Also going to go ahead and sort by converted mana cost down here so we can make sure we draft a solid curve. So far, so good. We want to pick up a couple cheaper things if we can, but we'll just have to grab those as they come to us. Once again, waiting on other players. And again, we're not locked into this archetype yet. There's been a good amount of black spells passing us by, which makes me wonder if anybody at the table's doing that. Pack 2 will tell we may need to move into black to capitalize that if we keep seeing good black cards. You probably don't want to try to force a theme when you're playing this. You want to take what you're dealt. But at the moment, the best thing we can keep doing is cutting the artifacts and hoping to get them for ourselves. Fingers crossed that we're able to snag a couple more, or at least a couple more things to make Thopters as this pack continues. As this pack continues, we don't see anything there. Clash of Wills is a counterspell, but that doesn't seem to be what we're much after. Fiery Conclusion allows us to sacrifice a creature to do 5 damage to a target creature. If this was target creature or player, I'd be much more excited about it. And finally, we have Smash to Smithereens, which destroys target artifact and deals 3 damage to the artifact's controller. This isn't an overall exceptional pack for anybody. Titanic Growth is very solid if you're in a deck that likes that sort of thing, and Deadbridge Shaman is a solid 3-1, so again, in case we wind up in the black-red deck, I'm going to snag that. Also because I think it's the most playable card in the pack, and when all else fails, pick the playables. At this point, I'm still not quite sure what is being cut, because there's some very solid red. We have a Vastwood Gorger, a foil one at that. He's not exceptional, but he is a solid beater if you're in green. Fairy Miscreant is a trap, no matter how many of those you have, I don't recommend it. Goblin Glory Chaser is actually fairly good. He becomes much tougher to block, and if he's not answered by turn 1, he becomes a very solid bruiser. We're going to go ahead and grab him up. We're still not quite sure whether we're going into red-black or if we're going into blue-red artifacts, or heck, maybe we'll see if blue-black artifacts are a thing. We still have plenty of time to develop, and even if Whirler Rogue, a great uncommon, doesn't make it into our deck, it also means it's not making it into anybody else's. And sometimes that counts for enough. Okay, so here we get the Mage Ring Bully passed back to us, as well as the Prickle Boar. Prowess on Mage Ring Bully is good. The having to attack each turn if able, not as much. Nivix Barrier here is also a 0/4 Flash Defender, which could be tricky, but I think if I had to pick a card here, I'm going to take the one that, if I use it, will actually be pretty good. And if we're attacking, Prickle Boar is pretty good. Okay, so we get back here, we find an artifact, but it's not a good artifact. So we're just going to go ahead and pass that one by, and we're going to look at our other options. Zendikar Incarnate could be an absolute beast. Return Centaur and Touch of Moonglove are both resignedly average, so we're going to take the Zendikar Incarnate, we're going to drop it into our sideboard. I really don't see us using this, but again, at this point, we're just going to remove whatever we don't want used against us. So far, we've got the beginnings of something. We just really need to see how it shapes up. Pack 2 will be the do or die for us, as it usually is, as by the end of that pack, we will be resigned to whatever it is we are. Here, I'm going to go ahead and pick up the Water Courser, as I said before, is a very solid filler blue card. His ability to change his shape and change his stats for a single blue mana means he can trade up fairly aggressively if need be. We're going to go ahead and grab the Negate here. I think one copy in the main board might be pretty good. I don't think I would want more than that, though, at least not in the main board to start with. I wouldn't mind grabbing a second one for the sideboard if we do indeed stay in blue. Sort by converted mana cost again. So as we said, Pack 2 and very early in Pack 2 will be the do or die for us. It really depends on what we pick up there, as I really don't see us getting anything else super compelling this round. I can't remember anything that I passed the first time that I've had my fingers crossed to come back to me. But you never know. Okay, there's definitely nothing much here. I'm going to go ahead and take the Enlightened Ascetic. Not because any of our options there were particularly good, but if we do wind up in artifacts, that could destroy it, and I'd rather them not use it against us. I also don't think a 3/2 that hurts both players for 2 for 5 mana, I don't think it's anything particularly special. It's not bad, it's just not special. Necromantic Summons here, Plains here, and that, ladies and gentlemen, wraps up Pack 1. Alright, let's cross our fingers and hope we get something really incredible off the top in Pack number 2. Well, we got a blue rare, Harbinger of the Tides, who's fairly excellent. Sorry about that. Let's just remove the antivirus. No, let's not make it bigger. There we go. Okay, so here we have the Aether Grid, which we're not that deep on artifacts yet. I don't feel comfortable. Titan Strength is a decent combat trick. Once again, there's really not a lot here that's screaming at me, but I'm going to go ahead and take the Harbinger of the Tides. I'll give you all a chance to read that. We can pay 2 more to cast as though it had flash, and when it enters the battlefield, we can return target tapped creature an opponent controls to its owner's hand. Basically, return their big attacker, make them waste another turn, and get it out of the way so we can mount a counterattack. The 2 blue in his converted mana cost will make him a little difficult to cast on turn 2, but I ultimately think the payoff is worth the risk. Alright, continuing through this pack here, we take a look around. We find a Scab Clan Berserker who has haste and renown 1 for 3, but once again it's 2 red. Thunderclap Wyvern is absolutely fantastic. Flash, and it gives a bunch of other flyers more power. We got blown out by that last week. But I still think it may just be the pick in this pack, as I'm just not seeing anything else coming together, and I'm worried that the artifacts aren't happening. Tragic Arrogance is almost enough, and where it earlier in the day would push me into white, because this card is simply incredible. It also suggests to me that if this made it to us, nobody to our immediate left is cutting white. Ugh, do we dare this late? I hate it, but I don't think we can. I think the pickup here, since red is a color we're definitely playing, has got to be the Cobble Brute. Alright, here's the whoa! What are you doing here? Another Whirler Rogue. Well, fancy coming by to my place? Alright, I think we're definitely in blue at this point, just because there's no way that got to us. And Sigiled Starfish, too? This is another incredible card. Tapping it every turn to scry 1 and a 0/3 defensive body in this aggressive format? Get in my deck. Okay, so, blue-red, it's a thing. Even if we don't necessarily completely go full ham on the artifact theme, this is still shaping up to be something pretty special. I say that. Hopefully it doesn't backfire in my face. I hope it doesn't backfire in my face, guys. Okay. So it looks like we're waiting on somebody else across the table, but here it comes. Okay. Well, remember how I said maybe we should go for the Infectious Bloodlust earlier? I think this is the 5th one so far, I believe, that we've seen. Let's see what else we have in this pack. We have Seismic Elemental, who, when he enters the battlefield, creatures without flying can't block this turn. We won some games on the back of this guy last week. Psychic Rebuttal. It's a counterspell. Not a particularly sexy one at that. Demolish destroys target artifact or land. Maybe it's not too late to snag a couple Infectious Bloodlusts. We're doing pretty good on creatures. In fact, we're doing lousy for non-creatures. So, let's see if we can pick a few of those up. I'm normally not crazy about auras, as, when your creature dies, so is your aura. But get one of these on a Thopter or something, and go to town. So we're going to go ahead and snag this here, and let's see if we can't grab a few others. Giving a creature 2/1, haste, and unfortunate drawback of attacking each turn if able. Well, then again, something with +2 is probably at least going to trade. And unlike most auras, which then just go away, this sticks around if we have multiples, because we can then grab another. Okay, in this pack we could grab Dragon Fodder to get some Goblin Creature tokens, or we could grab another copy of Water Courser to shore up our 3-drops, which are running a little weak at the moment. We could also grab a Brawler's Plate, but because after casting it for 3 mana and then paying 4 to equip it, that's a lot of investment for not a lot of payoff. We're going to grab the Water Courser. For once again the reasons we discussed earlier, its ability to change its stats around means it can trade very aggressively, or just power through for a lot of damage if left unblocked. It's also a good mana sink late in the game where we may not have anything to cast. So far we have 2 Whirler Rogues, and I believe that's it to make us artifacts. A Ring Warden is an okay pickup here, where if we can cast a Whirler Rogue on turn 4, we can cast this guy on turn 5. But as we have so few instants and sorceries at the moment, I'm not that interested. What I am interested here is the Reclusive Artificer, who has haste, and when it enters the battlefield, you can have it deal damage to target creature equal to the number of artifacts we control. Let's hope to get a few more. And the fact that this guy hasn't been picked up after an almost full rotation around the table, it also does strongly suggest to me that, in fact, there is nobody going after the red-blue artifacts. Or if they are, there was something else really amazing in that pack. And that's a good thing from where I'm sitting. It means we're not going to have a lot of competition, hopefully, going in to pack number 3. We've got a pretty solid list here, and we still have a whole other pack to make it even better. So I'm starting to feel a bit more comfortable, although, again, I would like a few more ways to make a few more artifacts before it's all said and done. Once again, I just don't feel like we have enough artifacts to make this work, especially if it's tapping 2 to deal 1 damage. I'm just not sure we're getting enough out of that. Instead, we're going to grab the Stratus Walk. When it enters the battlefield, we draw a card, it gives the equipped creature flying, and the enchanting creature can only block creatures with flying. It's a bit of a drawback, but if all else fails, it's a 2-mana cantrip. And hey, we can always cast it on our opponent's creatures to mean it can't block our ground creatures. And that could be fun. I also wouldn't mind dropping this thing onto our Embermaw Hellion and just having a giant, horrible Hellion worm creature thing smacking around in the air. It's a fun mental picture, and I don't think my opponent will much like being hit in the face for 5 either. So it seems pretty solid from where I'm sitting. I also used this back when it was originally printed in the Theros block, and I almost never regretted using it. Let's see if it's also still true in this format. So here's an Alchemist Vial. When it enters the battlefield, we draw a card. We can pay 1, sacrifice this to mean target creature can't attack or block this turn. Could be good on the offensive, good on the defensive, and it's an artifact that isn't completely terrible, and there's nothing else in the pack that's just screaming to be picked. We'll try it out. I haven't had a chance to use it yet. Sigil of Valor is an artifact equipment, and whenever the creature attacks alone, it gets +1/+1 till end of turn for each other creature we control. Well, once again, I'm not seeing anything else in this pack that's just begging for me to take it, so we'll go ahead and pick it up here. Not guaranteed that we'll run it, but guaranteed to at least look at it. It also does have a pretty cheap casting cost and an even cheaper equip cost, which unlike the Brawler's Plate we saw earlier, means I'm not so afraid of this. We'll probably have a spare mana around to pass this artifact back and forth as needed, so we'll strongly consider it. It's also good in situations where we are, for example, just bogged down. I'll take the Maritime Guard here for the sideboard. I don't think we'll actually play it. A vanilla 1/3 for 2 isn't great, but if we find ourselves in an aggressive match against a very aggressive matchup, it can block well enough. It'll at least keep the renowned creatures off us for a few turns till we can get a Whirler Rogue out or get some Thopter action going. And for the reasons we discussed earlier, the second Stratus Walk. I'm going to go ahead and sideboard it for now. We'll re-examine it when we get to the deck building portion after pack 3. Another Maritime Guard, because it's strictly better than a Forest, since the land tab later will give us as many as we want. And finally, last but not least, let's see what our basic land is this time. I believe we picked up a Plains in pack 1. Yes, we did, a Plains. Let's see what we get this time. If it's blue or red, we'll consider it lucky. It's a Swamp. That's fine too. Swamps are cool. So once again, sorted by converted mana cost, we got a decent curve. Our 2 drops a little heavy, our 3 drops a little light. We have a lot going on turn 4, with the Cobble Brute currently being the worst thing there. The 2 Whirler Rogues are absolutely spectacular. I'm so excited that we picked that second one up so late. And as we enter pack 3, let's see what we get this time. Well, it's a thing. Our rare is a Sheevan Reef, which is a rare land that can tap for either blue or red if we pay a life, or taps for colorless otherwise. I think this will come back around the table to us, so I'm not about to grab it. Ram Roller here, if we control another artifact, becomes very powerful. It would become a very powerful attacker, and as we have picked up several cheap artifacts now, it might be worth consideration. What else is in this pack? We have a 2/3 flyer that can only block creatures with flying. That's pretty good. We have a Suppression Bonds. This is as much as I want to take it because it's incredible, I can't justify it to myself. Yeah, I think I'm in the mood looking through all this to try Ram Roller. What's the worst that could possibly happen? He says. Well, I'm sure we'll find out. So in this pack here, we're finally finding the artifacts, which makes me think that maybe there just weren't any. We've seen Enthralling Victor and his amazing abs before. Jessie and Thief, which we passed in Pack 1, is back. A 1-3 who, when she deals combat damage to a player, draws a card, and we are weak on 3-drops. But we also have a Rune Servitor here, which is another 2-drop artifact in a deck that desperately wants them. This is a tough pick. The Servitor may wheel, I doubt it, but it may, whereas the Thief, I don't see that happening. We also, again, Scrap Skin. Why did they make that so hard to pronounce? Scrap Skin, which we've passed before, and like we said then, would be pretty good. But once again, I think I just have to take the Jessie and Thief. It's just that good. Oh, it's you. So for those of you that didn't catch last week's show, go watch round 1, game 1 real quick. I'll link it. If I remember, I'll put a little annotation here. Because, spoiler alert, we got wrecked by this thing last time. Absolutely wrecked. Ugh. So let's see what else is in this pack, yeah? Scab Goliath is a 6-drop who we have to exile 2 creature cards from our graveyard, but he's a 6/9 trample. That is a beast. There's also a Bone to Ash, which is a counterspell, and while it's not incredible for what we're doing, I could see a world where we want it. Evolving Wilds is solid for fixing. Guardian Automaton, number 2, would be yet another artifact for us, and Subterranean Scout could let one of our creatures be unblockable, but ultimately, Mizian Meddler because why not? Okay, here's another Sigiled Starfish, which is once again, excellent. The ability to scry 1 basically means each turn, at the end of our opponent's turn, we're like, let's look at our top card. Do we want to draw this next turn? And then we decide. Looking what else is in the pack, Dreadwaters is no way. We talked about maybe a second negate, but it's certainly not better than the Starfish. Demolish, pass. Titan Strength, as we said before, it's a very solid combat trick, but for right now, I'm going to prioritize creatures, and the Starfish is just too good not to. Orbs of Warding. We have Hexproof, and if a creature would do damage to you, prevent 1 of that damage. This seems just a little greedy to me. 5 mana to make us untargetable by spells. I can't think of that many that I have to worry about. And if a creature would do damage to you, prevent 1 of that damage. I mean, if it prevented just 1 damage period, which meant it also saved my creatures, okay, fair play. But I don't know, guys. I can't get excited about it. Let's see, we have Eyeblight Massacre here, which if anybody's in the elf deck, they would want this. We could grab the second negate like we talked about before, but I'm just going to go ahead and snatch up one of these. Bounding Krasis is not in our colors, but is another very exciting card. It can flash and tap an untapped target creature when it enters. That seems pretty neat. We also have another Alchemist Vial here, which is an artifact. We could pick up a Disperse to return target creature to its owner's hand, which gets better later in the game as we bounce either their pivotal blocker or their expensive creature they spent their whole turn casting. Smash to Smithereens is once again a decent sideboard card, and Unholy Hunger, destroy target creature unconditionally. I don't think I have to tell you why that's pretty good. It's a little expensive, but hey, you pay for what you get. Ultimately, I can't see myself taking a second one of these. I'm going to grab the Disperse. I'm not entirely certain we're going to roll with it, but we're going to take it. Okay, so in this pack we could grab a Throwing Knife, which would be exceptionally cheeky on a Thopter. We could grab an Artificer's Epiphany to hope to draw a card, or snatch up a Crowan Sergeant here as a very solid 3-drop. Looking at what we have here, I'm going to grab the one last artifact, especially since, as an uncommon, we're not seeing this one again. Going into this pack here, we could grab another Cobble Brute for our already somewhat crowded 4-drop slot, or grab the second Negate for the sideboard. I think Negate's the pick here. Fire Fiend Elemental is playable. He's got Haste and Renown 1. 3-power Haste for 4 is not exceptional, but he'll probably trade for something when he attacks. Veteran Sidearm costs 2, gives a creature 1/1 and equip 1. That's just not worth the price of admission as far as I'm concerned. Volcanic Rambler is a 6-drop who deals 1 damage to target player, and in a dream world where we have him and the Ember Maul out, that's 2 damage per turn. We could probably use one more big beefy finisher. I'm probably not going to use this guy, but I couldn't see anything else I wanted better. We'll snag him. And now we wait. Usually at this point, things are moving pretty quickly. At this point, everybody should know what colors they're in, so somebody's clearly got a tough choice. And I'm trying to remember if we're back to, we have gone all the way around at least once, so somebody picked up the red-blue land. I guess there was just nothing better in the pack for them. I was hoping it would come back to us. Maybe somebody rare drafted it. The bonded construct seems to be the pick here. I don't think we're going to run it, as it's frail and can't attack alone, but it's fine. Between the Subterranean Scout and the Automaton here, as crowded as our 2-drop slot is kind of a tough pick. Especially considering we don't have that many creatures with power 2 or less. I'm going to grab the Artifact Creature. I'm going to go ahead and grab the Demolish, just so it can't be used against us. But let's be honest, I don't think anybody was going to anyway. 4 mana to destroy a single artifact is a bit much. And sure, it can hit lands, but it's just not worth it. Smash the Smithereens, on the other hand, very possibly could be used against us. Instead, we'll snatch it to possibly use against someone else. And what's better than smashing one thing to Smithereens? Smashing 2 things to Smithereens, right? Right. So we get to our very final pick of the day, which should be one final basic land. Let's see what it is this time. So far, we're up to a plains and a swamp. Fingers crossed for a mountain or an island. It's another plains. It doesn't actually matter. Doesn't mean anything. But still, it's a fun game to play. Okay, so now we get to go ahead to the deck building portion of the event. As we've been building when we go along, we don't have that many tough choices to make. We are currently at 29 cards in our deck. We want to get down to 23. So let's start making cuts. We're going to sort by converted mana cost. We're going to group the creatures separately. So, the good news is our instant and sorceries aren't terribly expensive. The bad news is, well, I'm not sure it's strictly bad news. Okay, we're going to cut the Infectious Bloodlust. I was hoping to pick up more, but I guess somebody else actually did decide to do that. And it wasn't us. Alright, so that leaves us with 6 non-land permanents in our deck, or non-creature permanents. They're not permanents. 6 non-creatures in our deck. There we go. We have Stratus Walk, 1 Negate, 1 Disperse, and as far as artifacts go, which we're going to want for a Ram Roller, we have Throwing Knife, very good. Sigil of Valor, I'm still not sold, and Alchemist Vial, which, yeah, I think it'll get there. Enters the battlefield, draws a card. We already discussed how cantripping for 2 is a very good thing with Stratus Walk, especially if there's some upside. And this late game, whenever we need it, does have some upside. So I think these 6 are all going to make the cut, which means we got to get up here and make 5 tough choices. Well, I don't think this is a particularly tough choice. It trades very well, but on the other hand, they can also chump with something small to make it not trade very well. So we're not going to do that. I'm going to move the window over so we can see we have 8.5 minutes here. We got to think. Okay. Bonded Construct once again. I mean, then again, it blocks early, and it has 2 power, which means it can probably trade with a lot of the early renowned creatures. You know what? I'm going to roll with it. We're also running all the artifacts we picked up, which makes me happy. It makes Reclusive Artificer much better. Even if it enters the battlefield and we only have 1 artifact, dealing 1 to target creature is fine. Dealing 2 is better. Dealing 3 is gravy. Okay. So let's talk about the things we're definitely including come heck or high water. Yeah, the 2 Whirler Rogues, there is no way we're not. Hellion, oh yes. Ramroller, Chief of the Foundry, probably these 2 Automatons. They got decent stats for what they do, and the dying and gaining 3 life isn't bad. These get better once we get this out. Let's see. The 2 Sigiled Starfish, since we don't have a lot of early game threat, I think they're very good. They'll block. Goblin Glory Chaser, I don't know how much good he actually does for us here. The Bonded Construct can at least block more favorably and is an artifact. I think we're going to take the Glory Chaser out for now. Go down. Now we only have to make 3 cuts. Jessie and Thief doesn't hit particularly hard, but if you imagine if we put like Stratus Walk on her and just get her flying to hit the opponent, wouldn't that be great? I'm seeing a lot of upside on this, and again, a 1/3 can block reasonably well. The Mizium Meddler can block even better, and I'm sorry, I'm still salty about last week. We're totally doing it. Currently, double red on turn 3 seems pretty tough, but it also seems really amazing, because if an opponent casts a non-creature spell, if this card's renowned, it deals 2 damage to that creature. Yeah, I'm sorry, I think it's worth the risk. But I have to make 3 cuts. Abbot of Carol Keep seems pretty okay. Still not entirely convinced by him. I think Volcanic Rambler is just going to get cut. as he isn't amazing at his late stage of the game. We already have powerful creatures like Embermaw Hellion, we have Pricklebore, and his activated ability, sure, it's a mana sink, but I just don't think it's a good enough mana sink. And then there were two. Maybe we don't want to main deck the negate. I'm combining my words. Shorthand. It's convenient. We have two instances of prowess, and we have so few non-creatures as it is. But the way I see it, maybe we should just look at the prowess, as gravy and not as, something we're actively trying to capitalize on here. So, sure, we'll cut the negate for now. We'll know when we want it. And in fact, I'm even less set on wanting to disperse, and more instead I'm putting in another Stratus Walk, because if we can get flying to any of our big creatures, some of our powerful artifacts, or, God help us, our Jessian Thief, yeah, I think that's the play. We have to make one more cut, and while this deck does top out at 5, meaning maybe we could do a 16-card deck here, especially with 2 Sigiled Starfish early, I still think that's just a little too greedy. We're still running 19 creatures, so I think a creature could be cut. So which creature is it going to be? It looks like we're kind of much more of a red-blue tempo deck, trying to basically just hold off our opponent long enough. Until we can eventually just get something in the air and start beating with it. Or until we get a Whirler Rogue out and just get value. So I'm going to cut one of the Water Coursers here, just because it's good. It's not fantastic. And let's see, is there anything else up here we want to jam back in instead? Sort them all by color real quick into the stuff we can use. We have the 2 negates, Maritime Guard, after getting 2 Starfish, no way. Disperse, if we have an opponent who wants to turtle up and just build on something, sure. Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure this is our deck here, folks. It looks like a solid list. Let's add our basic lands real quick. The program's proposing an 11-6 split. We do have a double red, and we didn't pick up any Evolving Wilds, so I'm feeling more of a 10-7. I don't think I saw any uncommon lands today. Maybe I missed them, but I don't think I saw any. No Thopter Foundries, which would have been bomb in this deck. That's too bad. I'm sure I'm going to rewatch the footage and look at the point where my eyes glanced right past one of them, and I'm going to, hate myself for it. But these things happen. All right, guys, we got a solid deck here. I feel really good about it, and let's see what it does for us tonight. This has been Lee with Untapped Potential. Stay tuned for round 1.